Hey folks, gonna try to do something with my Volvo XC90 remote. You'll see here on the side, it just looks like crap. The previous owner, without knowing how to disassemble the key, was trying to pry it apart and ended up breaking some of the plastic. So in my last video, I fixed the switchblade portion of it, and while I was doing that, I used JB Weld to re-adhere this top portion, and I evened it out some. My plans are to come back after I repair this and sand it down, maybe spray paint it with some plastic primer, and then repaint the whole thing black. But what I wanted to show you was one, how to properly disassemble your remote if it's similar to this. This is for a 2004 XC90, and once I show you how to properly disassemble it, I'll show you how I plan on repairing this groove. Let me show you the other side, which was very similar to this. If you notice here, here's the repair that I did on the flip side of it, and it does look wavy, and it protrudes out in certain points. But what I plan on doing is sanding that down completely, possibly building this portion up a little bit just to see if I can get it even. But you know, at first blush, I mean, you get a better appearance, and it'll look a lot better once I sand it flat and repaint it. It's a uniform black, but it certainly looks a lot better than that. And of course, once I sand it, I'll get some of these nicks and grooves out. Alternatively, by sanding it, I'll probably, unfortunately, lose my model number. I don't think I'll lose the Volvo insignia or lettering, just for the simple fact that it's cut so deep into the plastic. But let me show you how to properly disassemble this. What you'll want to do, we have to disassemble it first to get all the buttons out, so that I can try to properly repair this. Go ahead and extend your key, and let's take the back cover off. Just going to use my little adjuster screwdriver and pop this guy off. And we'll bring you over here to get a view. Once that comes off, just set it aside. And you'll notice a torque screw back here. This is a T8 in size. What you want to do is just unscrew this. And pull the screw out and set it aside. And now this switchblade portion and the remote portion will separate. And the way you do that is you just pull the remote portion up and out of the switchblade. Now you can set the switchblade aside. Now we're ready to actually take this apart. This, if you have as bad of damage as I do, it'll simply just pull apart. But if you don't, and you're not going this far, and you want to clean it, you'll notice that it will be pretty well stuck together. So what you'll have to do is, I suggest doing it along these points here. You know, taking your adjusting screwdriver and just go in between the crevice and just split it apart like that. And I say here because this is where it mates up to the switchblade. And if you gouge or scratch any of this plastic, it's less likely to show. Whereas if you try to come from the back and you gouge this plastic out, that's always going to show. So you want to try to disassemble something where any gouging or scratches aren't going to show. But once you get it apart, like you saw, my battery just fell out. But most of the time, the battery, you'll either just dump it out, you know, once it's in there, or you can just wait until you pull it apart and it'll slide off. Now here's the back of it. Not too much going on here. Got a little metal piece that connects the positive to the negative portion of the controller for the battery. You can just set that aside for now. This, the internal components, they just pop out. You could probably just tap it, and it might fall out. If it doesn't, you know, carefully get your adjustment screwdriver, and you can easily pry it out. And once you get a ledge up like that, you know, just take your fingernail, just pull it out. It's just a circuit board with some momentary switches, and it looks like, you know, I haven't taken a hard look at this, but this may be an RFID chip, which would be kind of cool if it was. I don't know, anybody watching this that knows a lot about electronics, chime in, leave a comment. It'd be interesting to know if this is RFID or not. Okay, once you get that out of the way, you know, just set it aside somewhere carefully where it's not going to get squished. Then you have the rubber backing, which now you can just, you know, pull out and then set that aside, and then you've got your buttons. Don't pry these out. The easiest way to get these things out is just to set it right side up and let them fall out. If they don't fall out like this courtesy lighting, you can just push on it, and you notice how it came right out. Go ahead and set those aside. They go in one way, and I'll show you how to reassemble it. So it's pretty easy to put it back together. And plus, since Volvo kept these top and right buttons on a plastic tree, it's almost impossible to get that messed up when you go to reassemble it. But I'll show that in the video. Now that we have it all disassembled, I can, you know, clean this and set it up with some JB Weld. So what I'm going to do to clean it is, I've got a paper towel here. I'm just going to use some isopropyl alcohol. And I'm going to clean this outer edge here so it gives the JB Weld a better chance of sticking. And with any kind of epoxy or glue or something like that, you want to have a rough surface so it has something to stick to. In my case, I'm pretty lucky. This is pretty torn up, that it's going to stick nicely to that. I mean, it's got a rough edge to the feel, and it's got some grooves in here to stick. And as you notice, the first repair I did, I mean, that's on there pretty darn well, and it went into the grooves and whatnot. So what I'll do now is I'll show you how I plan on epoxying this. The way it worked on this side seemed pretty well. I wanted a way of having the case together, top and bottom, so that I could better fit the groove that I'm repairing, and also these little latches down here. A brand new case on the bottom part of one that's not broken, it's going to have little bitty tongues sticking out that are going to help it latch into these guys right here, and you know, hold the case together. But in my case, that's broken, and that's where the previous owner tried to pry it apart without knowing how to disassemble it properly. So my ideal is to have this together and put JB Weld in there. But the one thing I hit was, well, how do I do that? Because if I left it like this and put the JB Weld in, that's going to permanently adhere the top and bottom, and I don't want that, just in case the circuit board gets damaged or one of the buttons break or lettering rubs off or whatever reason. I don't want it to be permanent. I want it to be just as serviceable as it is now. So I came up with the semi-brilliant idea of cutting up a piece of Ziploc baggie, setting the bottom part in there, in such a way that it's covered completely, and then I could take the top part on the outside of the Ziploc baggie and snap it together. And what that gave me on this side that I'm repairing is a plastic shield between the top part that I'm putting JB Weld on and the bottom part that I don't want JB Weld on, because the JB Weld does not stick to this. I thought about cellophane wrap, but believe it or not, we don't have any in the household. So the next best thing was this baggie. Then what I do at this point is I just kind of wrap it under, and then I take a piece of electrical tape and just wrap it around the top of the whole control. One, to keep the two pieces together, and then the other to stop the plastic from slipping. And there we go. Now I have a surface that I can start putting JB Weld down in there and not worry about it permanently adhering to the bottom part. So let's go ahead and mix up our JB Weld, and we'll start sticking it in there. What it ends up doing is this, and about 10-12 hours later, by the end of the day, I'll come back, take this off and disassemble it, but I'll get a video of that. But for now, let's go ahead and mix up our JB Weld and start pooking this thing up. Okay, I'm just going to use a little dab of the cement. A little dab of the hardener. Equal parts as best as possible. I mean, this isn't, I don't have any way of getting this thing precise, so I'm not too worried about it. And then I take a toothpick, get this guy out the way, take a toothpick and just mix them up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I take my control, get a little dab of the JB Weld, just start smushing it in there. Then I'll press it down firmly so that it gets into the grooves. Taking the excess off, I'll take my little paper towel. I try to clean it up so that I have less to sand, just so I don't spend hours sanding this stuff. I'll take my paper towel. I'm applying a little bit of pressure to push it down in there. I'll fold my paper towel in just so I have a little bit more control of where this JB Weld is spreading. think I've got it pretty well pushed down into the grooves. Okay. Now that I'm comfortable with how well I've pushed it down in there, I'll take some more. I'll go ahead and add enough on there that'll give me a sanding edge, so I have plenty in there. It won't be perfect, factory perfect. You know, it sure is going to be a heck of a lot better than what I got now. Okay. There we go. And I don't mind that little bit right there. Well, yeah, I say that, but I'll go ahead and take it off with my paper towel. There we go. That seems pretty good. And the rest I'll just leave to sanding. But there you go. I'll prop it up to where it can dry, standing up as best as possible. Here we go. Just so, you know, some gravity can help let that JB weld settle in instead of running all over the place. But this stuff's pretty thick. I mean, it's not gonna. Well, I'll show you. I mean, I can hold the paper up and it doesn't run. So I imagine it'll stay there and dry. So we'll come back in about 10 or 12 hours and we'll take it from here, and I'll lead you through the steps of how I'm going to sand it and paint it and whatnot. But magic of video, this will be just seconds for you, but I'll come back to this in about 10 or 12 hours. See you in a bit. Okay, it's the next morning. Let's take a look at how the JB weld looks with the control sitting overnight. Not too bad. Too bad. Let's go ahead and unwrap this guy and gingerly pull back the plastic without making too much of a mess. Set that guy aside, and our bottom part fell out just like I was hoping it would, since this plastic was acting as a barrier. And what we should be able to do is gently pull back the plastic, and it should give us, that's not too bad, I can work with that. And it's thin enough that it's starting to break off, which is fine. The thicker portions I really wanted up here to repair this break. I think that's gonna it's going to do pretty well. So let me get let me grab a utility knife and we'll shave some of this stuff back. And that's pretty good. That gives me something to start with, you know, start sanding with and whatnot. Now what we can do is take our bottom portion, go ahead and fit it together. Well, that did not work out as I wanted it to, because even after we sand that, we're gonna have that crevice in there that we want to fill. We got that little divot right there. Well, for the most part, you know, at least it filled it. Alright. And it does adhere pretty well to the plastic. But my biggest thing is how, you know, you start to see the idea of what I'm trying to accomplish is repairing that edge. And I think, yeah, it can certainly be done. It's just a matter of doing it without the, if I set the JB weld in without the plastic in between, what we're going to have is, you know, these two are permanently going to be welded together, and I don't want that. I need the ability to separate them. So I wonder if thinking about this, I'm going to sit back, take a look at this and think on this a little bit more, see if I can come up with a solution, because I don't want to use like Bondo or something like that. I want something pretty hard and stable like JB Weld, because this thing, I mean, beating around in my wife's purse and stuff is gonna take some abuse. So I want it to be able to withstand that. I don't know. I'm going to think on it a little bit and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. After sitting and thinking on it for a while and thinking about how I was going to resolve getting a bead of JB Weld inside of here to get a good solid sandable finish. Since I'm not too happy with how the plastic reacted on this side. It did really well on this side, and I think that's partly because this key cut out. It allowed the plastic to go down in there more and then give the JB Weld some more space to push in there. So what I decided I'm going to do is I'm really going to make a mess of things. I've got some engine oil here, and I'm going to take the bottom part of my control and soak the entire thing. I'm going to go ahead and remove this metal bracket for the battery. I'm going to soak the entire thing in engine oil. That way it has a pretty good, I'm going to clean this as much of the crap off that I can. I'm going to soak it in engine oil so that I'm not going to use plastic or anything. I'm going to snap this back together, and then since the bottom part will be coated in engine oil, theoretically I could take it and put the JB weld on the top and inside of here, and it should not stick to this bottom part. I'm going to see how well that works, but at least that'll give me more room to get down in there and fill in those cracks. Before I do, I'm going to go ahead and peel a little bit of the JB weld that's already on there back, just so it gives me some more room to squeeze the new JB weld in. So this ought to be fun. I also looked online, you know, how much the bottom portion. See, Volvo sells the keys in two portions. A switchblade portion itself, which I did a video on repairing your old one, and then the electronic remote portion, the bottom portion. The one that Volvo sells comes completely assembled. Bottom portion looks just like this, with the electronic, the circuit board, everything inside of it, the buttons, no battery of course. But for that little piece of equipment, it is $105 without shipping, from the site that I found my switchblade from. And I thought, you know, even at $105, yeah, I could get a new one. I wouldn't have to mess with doing any of this crap, but you know, this is kind of fun. See if I can, part of it is see if I can fix it, and the other part is to of course save money. And you know, $105 just to gut it and just take the shell, because I wouldn't be able to use the circuit board, because I would have to take it to the dealer and have them reprogram the new circuit board to my car. I would just reuse the old circuit board and the new casing. But I don't want to spend $100. I don't know about the rest of you folks, but you know, that green stuff is far and few between these days. But anyways, back to my plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to soak this bottom portion in oil. There we go. Bottom part, top part. Let's get the sides. Now let's get the bottom. You know, just generally make a mess of the whole damn thing. I don't know, I'm kind of interested to see how this is going to turn out. I mean, if anything, it's going to be interesting to watch. So, okay, it's coated in oil. I'm going to grab a towel real quick. Wipe my hands off. Now that we got that coated, what we should, yeah, I see a pretty good coating on this side. The JB weld should not stick to that oil. So the trick's going to be making sure my gloves are completely clean. And then grabbing the top portion and placing it on there. Okay. So now theoretically all I have to do is just go ahead and smear JB weld on there. It should stick to the top, fill in the crevices from the greased bottom one, and we'll see how that holds up. So go ahead and mix my JB weld. And if you're wondering, I'm just using some leftover 10W30 motor oil that I had laying around. So I didn't go out and buy any special oil for this. I just figured, you know, anything would do at this point because I'm really just testing out some stuff. Okay, equal parts of hardener and steel, JB weld. Get my trusty toothpick. And we'll mix this stuff up. Okay, tip this guy up and let's get to spreading. Go ahead and leave a thick bead on there. I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe that top stuff off. Okay. Yeah, little stuff that I miss I can sand later on, so I'm not too worried about it. But that looks pretty good. Just go ahead and let that sit, and we'll come back. We'll give this 10 to 12 hours. We'll see how it does. Hopefully it does so well that I'll use the same method and redo the other side. Get a better, a less sandable area on that, because it's trying to create less work for myself. I don't want to be sitting here sanding all day. But I think that'll work. I mean, I can see a noticeable. It's almost like oil and water. I can see a noticeable difference of where the JB weld is almost floating on top of the oil. So I think that's going to give us enough barrier to be able to pull this thing apart once this JB weld sets. So let's give this some time, and I'll check back with you here in a little while.